Hi guys, Sean here from digiDirect. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Olympus E-M5 Mark III. Now the E-M5 sits in the middle of Olympus's OMD lineup. It's above the E-M10 and below the E-M1 and E-M1X. And it's actually been quite a while since Olympus updated this model. The Mark II came out in early 2015, so it's been over 4 years now. They've made a lot of improvements in that time, notably in their E-M1 Mark II and E-M1X. And a lot of the performance improvements from those cameras is inherited now into the E-M5 Mark III, while it still keeps a smaller form factor at the same time. Now we'll start by taking a look at the body of the camera, but if you want to jump to a specific section in the review, check the video description below. Physically speaking, there's not too many changes here. This is the same design that we've seen on OMD cameras for some time now. Compact, stylish, with a bit of a retro flair, and a good spread of manual control dials on it. Size is a major factor here though. Olympus is particularly pushing that while this camera has a number of high performance features in it, it still comes in at only about 55% the size of a full frame mirrorless system, and it's actually about 50 grams lighter even than the Mark II was. Like the Mark II, this is a weather sealed camera, so you can take it out into adverse weather conditions. There's new custom and bulb slots on the mode dial, and we still have a fully articulating screen here. People with glasses will be happy to know that the viewfinder now has an eye relief of 27 millimeters, meaning that you don't have to smush it right against your glasses in order to see properly, which is nice. We've got a mic jack, remote port, USB, and HDMI. Battery-wise, this actually now uses the BLS50 battery from the E-M10 Mark III. However, they've made some improvements to efficiency, so it's still rated for about 310 shots, which is about average. You can charge it via USB though, including with a USB power bank. Now the camera has Wi-Fi, but it also gains Bluetooth, which allows it to establish connection with your device a bit faster. And as with the Mark II, there will be a hand grip that you can get to give you a little bit of extra leverage. So internally, the sensor has been upgraded from the 16 megapixels on the Mark II. It's now a 20 megapixel sensor, which is about par for the course these days for a higher end Micro Four Thirds cameras. The picture quality is very high, very sharp photos, very good quality. If you do occasionally need higher res images than 20 megapixels, you can also use the high res shot mode, which will take 8 consecutive images, blend them together, and give you a 50 megapixel shot. You'll need to shoot that ideally from a tripod for best results. Now the camera also has the new TruePic 8 image processor that was introduced on the E-M1 Mark II. And the upgrade in power as a result of that is going to be what enables a lot of the performance upgrades that we're going to be discussing shortly. One other thing about that processor, Olympus claims that that's going to also enable improved low light performance. I had access to the camera during daylight hours, so I wasn't really able to test that, but I was shown a photo taken on it that was taken at ISO 3200, and it seemed to have very little noise on it. Olympus has again added their art mode feature in here that has a whole slew of art filters that are heavily customizable. This is a feature that will appeal to some users and not others, but there are some pretty cool looks in here. Now Olympus has always excelled at in-body image stabilization. That carries over to the E-M5 Mark III. It's now rated for 5.5 stops of image stabilization, which is a slight increase over the 5 stops that the Mark II is rated for. And in fact, when you use it with either the 12-100 or 300mm IS lenses, that increases to 6.5 stops. Even without those lenses though, 5.5 stops is a fantastic job. Here I'm shooting with a non-IS lens at 150 millimeters. So in full frame equivalency, that's equal to a 300 millimeter lens, so a very long telephoto lens. And this is very, very stable. So shooting handheld video with this camera is an absolute breeze. Of course, the benefits also translate to photos as well, meaning you can shoot at a much lower shutter speed, meaning you can shoot in lower light conditions. So not really a new feature for this camera, but Olympus maintains their extremely high standard. Like I said, in my opinion, the best in the market in terms of in-body image stabilization. So now let's touch on autofocus, and this is where we see the bulk of the improvements in terms of performance, because this is where this camera borrows most heavily from its spec'd out larger brothers. So it features the 121-point phase detect autofocus system taken from the E-M1 Mark II. This is an upgrade over the E-M5 Mark II, which had an 81-point contrast detection autofocus system. This is hands down a very large improvement over the E-M5 Mark II. The autofocus on the E-M5 Mark II was okay, it was fine, but the E-M1 Mark II was built specifically for autofocus performance, speed and accuracy and tracking and so on. I've discussed that autofocus system in my videos on the E-M1 Mark II. You can check those out if you like, but it's a very robust system. So having that put into the E-M5 Mark III is a big bonus, and it blows the old system out of the water. It's just a very, very effective system and a big increase over the previous one. We've got some other improvements though here as well. The camera has an upgraded burst shooting rate. It can now shoot at 10 frames per second with a mechanical shutter or 30 frames per second with electronic shutter. That's an improvement over the E-M5 Mark II, which was 5 frames with the mechanical or 10 with electronic. So some pretty significant speed increases, so you can utilize that new autofocus system to shoot some faster burst shooting if you're doing sports or action kind of work. We also see the addition of Pro Capture. This is the first time we've seen this not in an EM1 level camera. This is a feature where you can hold down the shutter button halfway and it's going to continually take shots, and then when you finally press the shutter button all the way, it's going to save the last 14 shots that you took. So if you don't know exactly when the action is going to happen, maybe you're a little bit late in pressing the button, this is very, very good because it'll save the last 14 shots. So overall, some very, very significant AF improvements both in the system, the speed, the accuracy, the burst shooting rates, the Pro Capture mode, and so on. Video-wise, the camera can shoot 4K video at up to 30 frames per second, which is about par for the course these days, but is an upgrade over the Mark II, which topped out at 1080. The quality level is quite high on the 4K as well. You can shoot Cinema 4K at 24 frames per second at 237 megabits per second, which is quite a high quality standard. As I mentioned, the continuous autofocus also works very well for video as well. Also, as I've touched on already, the image stabilization for video makes it very easy to get handheld shots that look very fluid. You don't need a lot of gear and support systems and so on, so it's a very flexible camera for video. And in fact, when you take a look at it, when you've got a camera that's 4K capable, it's got a mic jack, it has an exceptional image stabilization system, and it has a fully articulating screen, this looks like a pretty attractive vlogging option as well. So overall, the E-M5 Mark III is a strong improvement over the Mark II, which you'd expect considering the amount of time between releases, but it now holds a very nice spot in the Olympus lineup. Having a camera that's about as compact as the E-M10 Mark III, but is weather sealed, has a high resolution sensor, and has those very significant autofocus improvements means that it kind of sits as being in the best of both worlds. The E-M10 Mark III is still good for entry-level shooters. The E-M1 models are for the pros, but for an enthusiast shooter who wants strong performance out of their camera, but still having it be a very compact and portable camera, I think the E-M5 Mark III is an excellent option. Now, if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in purchasing the E-M5 Mark III, you can place an order on our website at www.digidirect.com.au. Thanks guys, take care.